This is on, because Sunday school starts at 10 after. So the camera's on, but I don't have the sound on. Okay, I just want to tell you that.
No, I just wanted to. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna try and get you. All right. Thank you. Hey, Ted. No, that's what it says. Ukrain.
Light of the world, you step down into darkness. Open my eyes, let me see beauty that made this heart adore you. Hope of a life spent with you. Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am to.
Good morning. Good to have everybody with us this morning on this.
Isn't this the last Sunday in April? That's hard to believe, isn't it? Jane, I know.
I'm going to sit over here just to make it difficult. Well, for those that have been here for a while, you understand that periodically we have a combined Sunday school class when we have a missionary come in, and it gives us an opportunity to make sure that everybody gets the information that's necessary about missions and is exposed to that even from a young age. And Jane is no stranger here. I'm the new guy on the block. She's been here for probably 5 taxes. No, I'm just kidding. But it's so good to have Jane Russel with us, missionary in Ukrain, and she is going to share
I don't have any sound.
and what's going on in her area of the world. And we'll start with a word of prayer and then we'll turn right over to her. Father, thank you so much, Jane, for this time to share. I pray, Father, that you bless for you. May you encourage our hearts. May you lift our spirits. Lord, may you provoke us to service and service of us, Jane, and for
Ministry here to us. Bless this day. all the plans of people to be here. I pray, Father, that you would encourage them and be with them as they make preparations. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, Jane, come right ahead.
Okay. Well, I was promised that I could see the slides, so we'll be able to get through this. So, yeah, have been in Ukraine for 21 years now. So that doesn't seem possible, but it is the reality. So,
Hold on, we're going to get you that. Your monitor.
okay, super. I'll continue waxing on then. So, so I am glad that God has called me to Ukraine and to be there such a time as this. And when people are open to hearing, things are a little probably less open right now than they were 20 years ago. That's just because people have become comfortable and happy with their things and don't really need God. So that's how it happens, and that's how it happens in our world too here. And so so we're pressing on and making friendships, and so we with my missions agency, we have a ministry to international students, and so we see a lot of students coming from the stands and from the Iran, Pakistan, and all those Armenian places too. And many of them have not ever heard the gospel because there has not been an opportunity. So it's a great pleasure to be able to do that. Okay, do I have a clicker, or do you have or do I just tell you click? Okay.
Well, I'm not too.
Okay, great. All right. So when I returned to Ukraine in November of 2016, I knew that I wanted to create a ministry to help children know what missions was and to have a desire to be missionaries one day. And so it took me a little while, but I came up with my purpose statement of teaching children to learn and live globally. And so, just a moment, I'm not quite done. So, so then, or give you a thumbs up or something. So it was a real learning curve because I had never created anything like that before. So what should it be called? How should it look? What kind of fonts should I use? All those things were big questions that really I had to answer, but I didn't know how. But eventually we got to the end. And so I had a friend help me with this graphic, and so it was nice, and I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So that kind of helped me to lead into. So my ministry is called Impacting the World because it makes the most sense in Russian, Ukrainian, and English. So I can't just pick anything I want. It has to make sense in 3 languages. So, all right, let's move ahead. So in March of 17, I started with my first seminar and talked about why children and why missions. And so people came, adults, teenagers came to hear why should children learn more about missions. And so it was a great opportunity, and I was just thrilled to be able to be there. And so at the end of the time, I just felt this is what God created me for. And it took 51 years to get to that place. So, there's hope. If you haven't found what God's created you for yet, there's still time. And so because I love to teach, I love missions, and so this kind of definitely combined the two of them. Plus, I don't have to grade papers anymore, so that's a big deal. So and I'm very happy. So, okay, go ahead. The next thing I had to do was find a printer. Who's going to print my things? So I had all these ideas running through my head, and how am I going to do that? So I did one of those Google searches, printers near me. I found one that was about 5 blocks away. That's important because I only walk in Ukraine. So, and to that printer especially, there's not public transportation, so it had to be close. And so one of my first things I did is I wanted to create a bank box so kids could start saving money. And so So there it is, the picture and design. So, I mean, I had to go, okay, tell me what I need to do, tell me what I need to send to you. So we had their graphic design artist do it, and so it folds up to like about a 6-inch square, maybe 5-inch square. And so it's been very useful. I ordered 1,200 and I have about 110 left in 3.5 years. So God's using that for a good purpose. Okay, next. And so another thing I wanted to do, I thought, oh, we have to have some stickers because, you know, kids love stickers, adults love stickers. And so the only one I found in any Russian-Ukrainian context was about the size of a quarter and very small and on one page, you know, and I'm like, oh, that's just not going to cut it. So I'm like, okay, so I had sat down already. I had about 100 designs, approximately. And I'm like, okay, now I have to choose which ones go which way and that kind of thing. So she told me everything. So this has a cutter that goes for it that cuts through the paper, but not through the backside where it sticks, so you can peel it off. It's very interesting, all these things I got to learn. And so those are printed also Russian and Ukrainian. I work in a dual language society. Their official language is Ukrainian, but I only know Russian, so they can ask me anything they want in Ukrainian, but I only answer in Russian. I understand enough Ukrainian to get by, so that's the way it goes. So, okay, next slide. So I couldn't limit myself to 9, so I gave myself 18. So I have a horizontal and a vertical page that I designed, and it was a lot of fun because I got to choose the graphics, I got to choose the fonts, and all these things that's just something that I like to do. So, okay, next. So as I began working more with ideas of what I wanted to do, I realized that I really needed a website because I have a lot of ideas that I just want to share, but not a way to share them. And so a friend of mine and I sat down. He did the design. I gave him the info. He did the designing. But it took us 3 days. So if you have to design a website and need to pay for somebody to do that, they deserve it. Okay? It was a lot of work. And so the website is there. It is written in Russian, and then you can translate it to either English or Ukrainian. That way is easier than translating from English to Russian because there's a lot of things that get mistranslated through Google. And so, anyway, so now it's not a clean read, but you get the idea of everything that's there. Okay, next. One of the pages is a resource page. So I have lots of things that Sunday school teachers and parents can go to find out more things that are there. So there's cross stitch, there are skits, regular skits, puppet skits, songs, all kinds of things, a list of books of possibility. And so there's all kinds of things there that they can get to, and they can download those for free. And so with the puppet skits and skits, I went on the internet and I searched. So then I had to go ask each author if I could translate their skit into Russian and put it on my website, free of charge, that nobody's going to pay for this. It was already on a free website, so I figured they wouldn't mind. So, and so most of them just said, oh, just send me a copy of that in Russian. I think I would like to see that. Not that they could read it, but, hey. So, any rate. All right, next page. And then the big part of my ministry is creating culture curriculum to help children and young teens learn about different cultures and just to experience another culture, because we have our culture and we know what we like and what we do. And so right now I have a curriculum for China, Zambia, and the Philippines. The Philippines isn't there yet. It's just about ready to be put on. But that's what I do. And so I'm working with Bible visuals. I'll talk about them in a minute. But so this is a place where parents or the teachers or Christian ed directors can come, get the information. Oh yeah, we could do this in our group. And so so it's just a lot of information and a lot of creativity that I get to put to use. All right, next. So working with Bible Visuals International, they're based out of Akron, Pennsylvania. They do flashcard stories, so they're the large pages. And so the story is, you have to memorize the story to tell it. And so they have Bible stories, but they also have a lot of missionary stories. And so I've been using their missionary stories as my basis to start where I'm at. And so so I'm excited. They are very supportive and just want to see more and more go out. And so three of them are now finished, and so that were already translated into Russian. So I just added translating it into Ukrainian. So the next step is translating the ones that don't have either Ukrainian or Russian in them. And so we'll see what that comes up next. I don't know. So, all right. In March of 2018, I got to work with 5 of these women are Ukrainian. 1 is a missionary kid. But we were able to take the Zambia story and the Zambia learning centers and helping to show what it could look like in their church. And so these women are just very supportive. I am very encouraged that there are some Ukrainians to come alongside me, and I come alongside them, and to help with their endeavors in reaching their kids for Christ for missions. Okay? So for the Zambia workshop or the day, we had one learning center called Facts about Zambia. So there's all kinds of things. There's about 150 different languages in Zambia, and English is the trade language. There's 150 languages. Now, it's not that big of a country. So it's like every village has their own language kind of thing. And so it's a lot of languages. And so that's one free fact for today. So, okay, next. Another learning center we did was basket weaving, because they weave beautiful baskets in Zambia. Now, we did a shortcut. We took paper cups and cut them down, and we wove yarn around it. So, but we want to give the kids the idea, it takes time. You don't just poof, and there it is. It's something that you can spend time doing and becoming an artisan and learning how to do it better and those kind of things. So, all right, next. So, of course, you have to go on a safari when you're in Zambia. That's just part of life there. So I went through what I would find what I thought I would find on a safari. So I had pictures of the wild animals and then a little detail about each one on the backside that the safari director told them about. And so here, and no, you can't really see it, but I made a Jeep out of cardboard for them to sit in. So I had the outside of the thing was a Jeep. So that's just kind of how my brain works. Once it gets started, it really can't stop. So, and so we have a good time. And so it's portable. It's made out of cardboard. You can just fold it up and take it somewhere else. So that's a good thing. And so, all right, next. So here are some birds that you can find in Zambia. The first is a violet roller. So it's pretty small. And then the next is the gray-crowned crane. And then the last is a shoebill stork. And he stands about 3.5 feet tall. So I watched a video. His mouth opens pretty wide. Probably could fit my whole forearm in his mouth. It's pretty amazing. I'm like, glad I don't have to see those every day. So, but these are just a few of the birds. There's like 50 different birds that are in Zambia. So, just imagine the fun to be seeing different animals and things that you don't get to see all the time. So, okay, next. We made a kalimba, which is also a thumb piano. And so ours were made out of cardboard with hairpins. hairpins bent to different degrees make different sounds. Now you know. So, but it's a short version, and so also helping the kids to be involved as well. Okay, the next slide. So the top picture is a real one. Has the keys, and you play it with your thumbs only. And so there's sheet music, and there's all kinds of things out there for it too. So, but it's an instrument that they use in Zambia as well. Okay, next. Okay, so the next was combining like a culture habit as well as the clothing. So the women wear sarongs, which is just a large piece of material wrapped around and around and around. And so you have to learn how to put it on. You take a step forward before you start wrapping so you can walk. Otherwise, you can't walk. So, and then every student, when they go to school, their first thing in the morning is they walk down to the well, get water, put it in the bucket, and walk back to school. So we put potatoes in this bucket because I didn't want to clean up water. But so you have to balance the bucket on your head. You use a towel as a base to help hold it there. But you don't run. You don't make zigzaggy moves. You walk slowly and go. And so it is a way of life, and is what they do, how they live in Zambia. Okay, next. So in June of 2018, with those women that helped me with this conference, they wanted to do their own children's missions conference. They had some ideas, but they didn't really know exactly everything they wanted to do. So we met and helped them. My teammate Leanna was there too, and so we all just kind of pitched in and said, okay, let's make this a great thing. And so that day, 285 kids from age 7 to 14 came, and there were about 35 adults as well, so it was a huge event. Now, the church we had it in holds 850, so no problem. We had plenty of room, but it was just great because the kids got to be involved and experience this thing. We want to do it again, but we don't know when. So, okay, next. So the first thing they came to was passport control. They had to go through, to get in, they had to go through a passport control, empty their pockets, you know, the one gal says, oh, so what do you have? And the kid's like, I don't know. What do I have? So, kind of put a little fear in them, which sometimes they do at passport control. And so at the end, when they registered, they all received a little passport, an actual that we made up, and then they put their thumbprint in it instead of a picture. And so they used that throughout the day as they were participating in activities. Okay, next. So we sang a lot of songs. They did scripture memory, so they all memorized a verse in Ukrainian, and then divided them into 10 groups, and they each group had a different version, a different language of that same verse. So, and they wrote it out phonetically. So they learned that verse phonetically, and then every group got to share. So they got to hear, 11 different languages that day. And so it makes an impact when you hear God's word in another language. And so, okay, go ahead. Then we had a skit of how does a missionary get to the mission field? So we have our unreached people group there in the, what way is that? Right hand, left hand side? This way. Right hand side of the top. Thank you. And then our little missionary there in the center with the pink shirt on. She was cute. She was our missionary, but how do they get there? So it not only takes the missionary's desire to go, but it takes money, it takes prayer, it takes people, it takes a supporting church, it takes people who help them stay on the field. We have people who will help you with just spiritual and emotional needs that you have. So all these people, and of course by that time there's probably 10, 15 kids up there. So they actually took the rug that she was sitting on, and they picked her up and physically moved her to the unreached people group. It was a very visual demonstration, but very helpful, because we see, no missionary goes to the field alone. And I never have felt like I've been alone. So I know people are praying and people are helping financially, and there are people that I can call on. So I'm very thankful for that. Okay, next. And so at this conference, we did the life skills that were needed in Zambia. So here's the walking again. So they got to experience Zambia while they were there. And so there are real pictures of people in the actual costumes, and then pictures of people actually doing the work. And the boys were all included. They all had to carry the bucket. So that made it right. Okay, next. And so this church has a bus, which is kind of nice because we just made that the safari bus. And so they had to go onto the safari and listen to the safari. I took care of the facts museum, kind of what I called it. So there was a piece of paper where they had to find the answers on this piece of paper. It was written somewhere on the wall that they had to go find that answer. And so then when they finished those activities, they got a sticker to put into their passport, which said they finished the activity. So at the end, they did reward some, if you finish your activity, you got to be able to be chosen for something at the end. I don't remember what that was exactly anymore, but that's how it went. Okay, next. All right, for music, they did some songs in music time, but they also made drums. And they're made out of 2 cardboard cups with some cellophane paper on top. Hey, but it works. It makes a sound. It vibrates. And it helps, and then they get to decorate it into a African style, so using geometrical figures and lines and zigzags and things like that, so they were able to do that. So it was exciting. The kids loved that part because I made my own drum, So, all right, next. They had a game time as well, and so everybody lived for game time. Well, the boys especially lived for game time. They loved it, and so they have a little area outside the church where they could run and play, and so they do that. But at the end, they got a sticker for participating, and so that's how that went too. Okay, next. At the end, we asked for a commitment. If there was something that God spoke to them about during this day, they could come and ask for prayer. And so the young man said he wanted to make a commitment to Christ because he saw that he needed to do that in his life. And so that was his prayer. The second girl wanted to prayer so she could make sure that she shared Jesus with her friends at school. And then the last girl is 14. She said, well, I want to be a missionary in North Korea. And so God's already working in this girl's heart that one day she will be a missionary in North Korea. So it's kind of exciting. There are a couple Baptist churches that work with North Koreans in helping to provide money to dig wells. The water supply in North Korea is very bad. And so this is how the Ukrainian church is responding to that need, to say, we're here, we're beside you. And so there are believers in North Korea, they just can't talk about it, okay? So that's how we're helping them, okay? Next. And so this was the group of people who I worked with. So a lot of these men are just the husbands of the wives who are in the group, but there are 3 or 4 young men, Pastor Sergey there in the center, and then Chad, my teammate, is toward the end of it, but his wife's in there too. So, but Pastor Sergey used to be the president of the denomination, but he stepped down from that so he could focus on missions. And so he is their missions pastor now, and just highly involved in promoting missions and wants people to do what God's called them to do. So calling children into into involvement. So what can they do? What can they do? Okay, next. Well, one thing they can do is pray. Praying about their lives, praying about the lives of other children in other cultures and other countries. They're children just like you. Many of them don't have Sunday school because they don't have a church. And there are not people, they're not older people who know Christ who can help them. And so helping churches to grow, praying for those unreached people groups to be reached so that the gospel can be shared in their community. Okay, next. Another thing they can do is to give. And I started at age 3 in Sunday school, taking the money that my dad gave me and putting it into the little offering box. Now, I realized that money really wasn't mine, but I put it in the box. It developed a habit from age 3 that continues to this day. What do I do with my money? I give to God. Okay? Those are the habits that we want to develop in childhood that are going to carry through for a lifetime. And learning how to give cheerfully. And some of them work for their money that they put into their box. I encourage that. I encourage them to do chores. I encourage them to take recycling to the recycling center and get money for it. And so that's how this happens. When I shared this idea at the first conference I was at, that was in March. In July, I had a teacher come up to me and say, I challenged my students to collect money. So we've been doing that for April, May, June, and now July. And we have over $135. So it was 2,600 hryvnia. Okay, so that made this box pretty heavy, full of change. But that's about how much it'll hold. It'll hold about $125 in a box. And they continue. I mean, they continue to this day doing that. When a child brings in a full box, she just gives them a new one. Here, go fill this one. And so it's a habit. It's forming. What can I do? I can't do much, but I can go collect recyclables. I can pray. I can ask my neighbors if I can rake their yard or whatever. Doing things to get money to put into the box. Okay, next. Children can testify. They can tell how God has answered their prayer. And this, to me, it gives power to prayer. When I'm paying attention to what I'm praying and how God has answered, you better believe it gives me more energy and more excitement to want to tell more, want to pray more, so God can answer big things. And so, and then if they have committed their life to Christ, to make that known too. Yeah, I know. Getting up in front of people is very nerve-wracking. Your knees shake, your voice stammers, you don't quite know what to say. It'll go away over time, but when you do that, God's smiling, He's like, yes, thank you for giving testimony to me. And so, helping kids to make, prayer goals that are achievable, or even some that are not achievable by human standards, so that God gets the glory. And so that's what we need to testify about. Okay, next. Another thing that children can do is they can serve. They can serve in church and in their families, different ways. My parents actually did not know what a babysitter was. It had its benefits. I got to go along with them everywhere they went and serve. I served with my parents. And that's the thing that they laid into my life. And so serving today as a missionary is just an overflow of what has happened in my childhood, because I learned when I was little. And so there is documentation that when you serve together, you build relationships, and you're more likely to stay in church, more likely to stay with the group that you're serving with, because you've created a bond. And so whatever it is, if it's a Sunday school class, a youth group, whatever the situation, that you're serving together. I belong to these people belong to me. And so that is just the benefit of serving together. And And we all want children and adults alike to stay in church and be involved in where God can be glorified. Okay, next. In the fall of 2018, I went to Russia. I have teammates in Russia in 3 different cities, and so I went to each city and did the presentation. I did a long version of what I just shared with you. So it wasn't a few minutes, it was about 45 minutes long. And so this was, I went to 3 cities. I went to Ufa in Bashkiristan, which is near the mountains. It was absolutely gorgeous. And then in Tambov, which is south of Moscow, it is a farming community. So I felt very much at home there too. I'm like, wow, this is good. And then I also went to Ulan-Ude, which is more toward the east. It's about a 3 or 4 hour, 3 or 4 time zones actually difference from Moscow. So that's a lot. It was a 5-hour difference from Ukraine. But I got to share with Sunday school teachers there, and they were motivated. They were excited. They were willing to hear, and so that was exciting for me to be able to do that. Most churches in Russia, this church here is called the House of Prayer for All Nations. So that's what it says at the top of the church. And in this church specifically, there are all nations. There are at least 20 different people groups in this church, which I'm like, I feel like I'm in heaven, just a taste, and because they're all talking. I mean, they have a common language, but they all have their heart language. So some of them are singing in their heart language as well as, so it's just this orchestra of different languages, and it was just absolutely beautiful. And so it's very exciting. This church has a desire to reach out to 3 different unreached people groups, which are right close to home, which is very exciting. So the Bashkir and the Tartar are right within the city limits. And so they do a lot of ministry with them. And so that's exciting because we want to see them come more and more to Christ. All right, next. So in March of 2019, there was another missions conference. MMK stands for Межкультурный молодежный конференц. So, any rate, I'll just say conference because it's easier. But this time I focused on how we can help children and teenagers know the God of the nations. If we read in Scripture, we see that God refers to himself many, many times over as the God of the nations or the Lord of the nations. He is over all. He knows all. He knows every person by name and every person regardless of when they lived. That should blow you enough away to make you, okay, I need to pay attention. But God has a desire for the nations to hear about him. And so that was my focus there, trying to help people to get that into their minds so they could share. The gal in the top photo, Irina, she is a musician. And so in March of 2019, I said, Irina, we need a book of music, a book of songs about missions, because we don't have one. Well, that just spoke right to her heart language for sure. She's like, yes. So she went, and so by that fall, by MMK 2019, she had a book. She's now printed a 2nd book and working on the 3rd. So you just can't stop this girl. She got started and she's like, yes, I gotta go. And so some of them are songs from other cultures. Some of them are songs that she has written herself. And so she's very gifted. And so God's just using the gifts that she has and using them for his glory. Okay, next. So, creating stickers is one of my things I just enjoy doing. This one took a little while. So I have I had these stickers printed in English and Russian and Ukrainian. Now, in English, they're all 3 to 5 letter words. It's not that way in Russian and Ukrainian. So the writing is very small on those, so that's just how it is. But my goal eventually is to use these for the missions passport idea when we have an event. So I made them kind of small that we can just put those on there. And so and take up less of the space. So I have English ones with me, so if you want one, you can come see me. Okay. All right. Next. So I'm like, okay, I have all of the Russian and Ukrainian stickers, but I need some English stickers. So I spent some time developing a few English stickers. So some of them are similar to what you'd find on the other 2 pages, and some of them are completely different. So, but these are how it is. And I had my missionary kid, Michaela, who loves art. I said, I can't find a picture with somebody telling somebody the gospel. And so she's like, I got it. So she actually used her 2 sisters as the people who sat for this. And so but she's like, I got it. I can't. So she did it. She did it in pastels. So it was a fun experience for her too, to get to try out a few things. So, all right, next. So things that I have published are the Zambia curriculum, the China curriculum, a skip book, and a puppet skip book. I have handouts to help people know about different cookies and other food themes around the world. In a lot of places they eat mayonnaise on their French fries. Okay? Don't knock it till you try it, but I'm just telling you, they don't sell ketchup in a lot of places. So, any rate, but my goal is just, and all of these things are on my resource page on the internet. So these are things that I have developed over some time and want to be able to share with people. Okay, next. In October of 2020, I went and did a training for these missionary students at a seminary. We did a little retreat style, so it was kind of like the training before they go to the mission field. So I did a session on presenting your ministry and presenting your ministry to children and presenting your ministry to adults, and maybe how that could look different. And so, but there was a good group of us. The girl in the center with the plaid shirt went to Uganda in February for a year. It's been her heart's desire since she was a little kid to go to Uganda. Don't know why. God put it there. Okay? So, all right, next. Okay, do you know what the Great Commission is? Yes? No? Okay. This was a Barna study recently done. This is for churchgoers. 51% of churchgoers do not know what the Great Commission is. So you cannot say that. The next slide. So in Matthew 28:19 and 20, it says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations." All right. And it's said again in Mark. That's the Great Commission. Go and make disciples. Go and tell people about Jesus. So now you know what the Great Commission is. So if someone asks, you say, yeah, I actually do know what that is. So, okay, next. And so now talk a little bit about UPGs. So unreached people groups, people who have less than 2% of their nationality, of their people group, are believers. They've determined that if you have 2%, you probably can reach your people group for Christ. So less than 2% of your people group know Christ. And so that makes you unreached. That also means you probably don't have the whole Bible in your heart language. And so there are a couple other qualifications. So that's an unreached people group. Now, UUPG, the unengaged, unreached people groups. So there are a lot of those. Probably, I'm not even going to give you a guess. But unreached, unengaged. That means these people have never met a Christian in their entire life. And a lot of these are in this 1040 window, what they call the 1040 window. A lot of the terrain here is mountainous, high valleys, low valleys, high mountains, so hard to get to. So these people still need to hear Christ. So that's what an unengaged, unreached people group is. Okay, next. I'm in missions mobilization, so that means I help people to become aware of the need for missions and what they can do. We do that by teaching a course called Kairos International. It's from the Philippines. If you're familiar with Perspectives, it's kind of like a lay leader's version of Kairos. The Kairos is the lay leader version of Perspectives. So it's you don't have to write papers. You do have to do homework, but you don't have to write papers. So that makes it nice. And so that's what we use in Ukraine to train and help Ukrainians. We have a youth version as well as the adult version. They want a children's version, but I'm not sure about that, so we'll see. We assist those who want to serve, so if you want to go to the mission field, we will help you. 50% the first time will come from us, and the other 50% has to come from Ukrainians. And then each time you return, it's 10% less. And so we now have one gal who is on her third term, so she's now at 80% Ukrainian and 20% American money, West money. So it's exciting. She wants to call, she wants to go back, and so those kind of things. Publishing books is another thing that we do. And so my goal while I'm home is to help raise money to publish this book called The Window on the World. And this is to help people pray for unreached people groups or different nations throughout. So there's tons of colorful information. And so it's made for, if you know Operation World, this is a children's version of Operation World. And so it's going to cost about $12,500 to publish it in Ukrainian and Russian. So it has to be translated both. It has to be edited both. So that's why it's money. It's just because it's double the cost. Okay, and then, I already shared about that. Go ahead, next. My prayer concerns. I feel it's time for a Ukrainian to take over my ministry. Not that I have plans to quit or anything like that. It's just time. And if it's going to continue, if it's going to succeed in Ukraine, there has to be a Ukrainian in the lead. And so I feel there needs to be a few years transition. And so that's why just to start praying for that person or a group of people, whoever it may be, that the ministry would continue. And so I realize that there's a need for an advisory team. So I'm creating a U.S. Advisory Council and a Ukrainian Council just to help me make sure I'm staying on task. I want to involve some 10, 11, 12-year-olds. What do you really want me to do? What do you think we ought to do? So, because they got great ideas. So that's why I want them to do that. So my next curriculum project, whatever that will be. And then also for just the 3M, the missions mobilization, that there would be more Ukrainians to go and more Ukrainians sending and seeing it as a reality. I was just sharing with someone that the current political war situation in Ukraine, Russia has promised to remove all of the things they had lined up at the border by May 1st. So it's not May 1st yet, so we'll see if that's true. All right, next. Financial needs, my personal monthly financial needs are at about $1,000. Lots of reasons for that. People pass away. People decide they can't give anymore. But, God's always faithful. I'm not missed a paycheck yet, so that's just exciting to share. My one-time needs are at about $11,500, and that's to help replace things that a computer, which I already had to replace, is to help me to continue in language study. Even though I've been there 21 years, I don't know it all. And I've just determined Russian is a heavenly language because it's going to take eternity to learn it all. So, and then for 3M, which is Missions Mobilization Ministry, that we be able to continue publishing, that we be able to continue helping those who need to go, and also to hold conferences that help. And so we did hold a conference in March. It was a little different looking. We had satellite sites, for the lack of a better word. So there are 14 places in Ukraine, 2 in Poland that it was connected to. So we had local worship, local prayer, but then we had a person, satellited in for the message, and then they had discussion groups afterwards and prayer after that. And so, yeah, I felt it really worked really well. Total, we had about 525 people registered, which is exciting. So that's good. And so, as we come to a close, my question is, what about you? Where's God calling you today? What's He calling you to take a step? Maybe a step of faith. There are many ways to serve in missions. There are many ways to give in missions. And so whatever God's calling you to do, do it. If you need somebody to pray with you about it, I'd be glad to do that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jane. We'll take a few minutes.